The Spin-off Podcast Network.
This is Kiwi is back for a brand new season with more inspiring kōrero from special guests including rugby player, father and role model TJ Perenara.
My family bring me joy. Rugby brings me joy too, but it's not the same joy as my family brings me.
And global dancer and choreographer Kirsten Dodgen.
For some reason, people think I'm very intimidating.
Listen to the new season of This is Kiwi, brought to you by the Spin-off Podcast Network in collaboration with KiwiBank. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Talo for Lover. I'm Madeline Chapman, editor at The Spin-off. If you have the means, consider supporting our high-quality journalism by becoming a Spin-off member. Sign up now at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
NAIR is public interest journalism funded through New Zealand On Air.
Nau mai, haere mai whakatau mai rā, he kōna e purangi tēnei pāna ki te ao Māori, me te ao hurihuri. Ana Aihe and Leonie, kapia Hayden. This is a podcast about being Māori in the modern world. Welcome to our final episode. Tēnā rā tātou hoa mā. You heard right. This is the last episode of this series, Ne Te Ao Māori podcast. We received one-off funding from New Zealand On Air last year to produce 25 episodes of this here poddy, plus 50 written pieces for the spin-off, majority written by the very talented Te Kuru Jews. Cards on the table, we don't currently have the funds to continue the podcast for another series, and we're very busy with lots of projects, so this is the actual final episode, but it's not a goodbye forever thing. There is a good chance we will come back to this wonderful space when we've had time to think and deliberate and collaborate some more. So it's not a final goodbye, it's just a mā te wā. I te tuatahi, karere te mihi aroha ki a koutou katoa, ara koutou o ngā kai whakarongo. Our first and foremost thanks go out to the listeners. We've loved the feedback, we've loved the kōrero. We're going to keep engaging with the world around us via the Instagram page, so do stay in touch with us. O te rā ki ngā manuhiri o te tau nei, ngā rangatira, our esteemed guests who have appeared on the podcast this year. Kei te mihi, kei te mihi, kei te mihi mai oha ki a koutou. We've been so lucky and spoiled, actually, to be surrounded by these people who devote their lives to te ao Māori, to making the world a better place for all of us. I'm going to name them all. Jordan Rapana, Raniera Proctor, Panya Papa, Casey Bird, Karina Bird, Julie Zhu, Lillian Hanley, Matua Joe Pihima, Karen Leaf, Mihingarangi Forbes, Peter Lucas Jones, Anna Corrington, Te Kahurere Moa Taumata, Hemi Kelly, Safari Hines, Te Wehi Wright, Trinity Thompson Brown, Gianni Matata Sipu, Chelsea Winstanley, Nico Hindon, Olive Karina Lockyer, Hana Rafiti Maipi Clark, Jess Thompson Carr, Ngahuia Murphy, Ataria Sharman, Kura Te Ua, Ramari Jackson Paniora, Te Arikirangi Mamaku Ironside, Amber Aranui, Kiengi Snauga, and Hohepa Thompson, aka The Hori. Our deepest thanks go out to every single one of you. So on that note, this week, the final week, it's just us. We are celebrating, we are looking back, we are looking forwards. We're enjoying some of the highlights of the series, and I am joined by my wonderful co-hosts, Meriana Johnson and Te Kuru Jews. Tēnā kōrua.
Kia ora, kia ora.
We do have a guest, except for he's not manuhiri per se, because he's as haukainga as it gets. Our beautiful producer and engineer, the man with the honey voice, who is responsible week after week for making us sound smarter than we actually are. It's Te Aihe Butler on the microphone at last. Kia ora e hoa.
Oh, kia ora, fellas.
Kia ora, kia ora. No mai.
Such esteemed company that you just listed out in excellent fashion just there, pal.
We just saved the best for last. And also I feel like at the end of this episode, listeners are going to get mad that we didn't have you on every episode.
Yeah.
So sorry in advance. So it's the four of us. This is the NAIR OG crew. We are going to sort of start out by talking about our favourite episodes / guests. Could just be someone that came on the show that really like hyped you up. I'm going to start with our manuhiri who's not a manuhiri, because you're the one that has listened in depth to every single episode. So I really am quite intrigued by who it is that grabbed you, Te Aihe. So who was your favourite guest / your favourite episode?
I feel like it's almost a little bit of a cheat answer, but and it might be one that is shared amongst you guys, but my favourite episode was far and away the Mahuru Māori special with Hemi Kelly, Matua Hemi, when he came back. And it was special because as someone who is still fairly early on in his reo journey, I sort of looked to you guys as an example, I suppose, of where I could be in the future, hopefully not too distant future, where I also take the leap to undertake a Rumaki Reo experience, a program of study.
Ka pai.
And it was honestly, it was aspirational. I mean, you guys know because you're in the room, but ngā kai whakarongo o te motu, they don't know that after the record, I basically came in and I was like, it was like I'd just seen the Black Ferns win the World Cup.
Shut up.
No, it was, you know, I was legitimately overjoyed for you guys and for, you know, hopefully my future self. I can only hope to achieve that level of confidence, that level of ability, that level of bravery and courage in my own reo journey. So, yeah, Mahuru Māori special, Leonie and Meriana's first Te Reo Māori podcast, I think was the title.
Nice.
Yeah, you guys, you're big inspirations for me.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear that because I don't know if you feel the same, Meriana, but I assume that you do, is that I just felt Aukies as having an hour-long combo with our mātanga reo over here, just like, oh, yeah, I hope that made sense.
Yeah, and especially like, because, you know, some of your reo Te Kuru is the taumata in Norway, so there was times where I was like still processing. I was like, I need to say something. It's hard, It's hard not to get in your head when it's your second language. I mean, I'm sure that's for any language. But and for the most part, even though I was like really stressed, it did feel really, probably as well because Te Kuru, you and Hemi were chucking us mihi throughout the which was like keeping me going.
Yeah. You guys were real good hype guys.
Yeah. But it felt like a real milestone. It felt like, oh, cool, okay. You know, because as you know, Leonie, like when you're in the reo haerenga, it's quite hard to measure your progress. And you only have you have small moments where you're like, oh, okay, that's a tohu that I'm getting better. You might stand up and do a mihi and you hardly and you're like, oh, okay, ka rere te reo. Today. Then the next day.
It's an impressive feat by anyone at any level of, even to do a podcast in English is, you know, it's hard work. We're looking back on a year of them now, we feel we're a bit more comfortable. I'm a bit more comfortable in it, but I think about doing a whole podcast in Reo Māori. I don't even know if there are any other examples out there, podcasts that are in 100% Reo Māori. I mean, if there aren't many. So what you did, regardless of your stage and comprehension or whatever of te reo, competency, it's impressive.
So what you're saying is we should do one, that we should make a podcast in te reo. Is that what you're saying?
I think there should be more. I don't, you know, we sometimes we are like, there's one, you know, Taringa is probably a front runner in terms of real podcasts that focus on reo, and Hemi Kelly has his own as well, but there's no reason why we can't have 50 of them. With Māori, I think we see a movie made by Taika about a boy on the East Coast, and all of a sudden there can't be any more movies about anyone on the East Coast because, that story's already been told. But I'm like, no, why not have more and more? We always settle for one and we're like, it can't be outdone or something like that. But yeah, just big mihi to you both. And shock Te Aihe for bringing that up, because this is a Te Ao Māori podcast. And for me as a real person, what better way to show progress and growth than you two showing and making that commitment at the start of the podcast, saying we're going to do one in Reo Māori, and then following up with your word, quitting your jobs and going to do kura rumaki for a year and then come in and show us how much you improved. So
remembering
for
a month
questions
that we were that we'd made this commitment, because we'd forgotten.
You're like, oh shit.
Yeah, I think you brought it up, Te Kuru. You're like, oh yeah, so well, Mahuru Māori's coming up. You guys are doing, we're doing an episode in Te Reo, and we're both like,
all on.
Oh yeah,
the very last week of Mahuru Māori. Yep.
What comes after August again?
Yeah, I think it just shows the value of, and that it works. If you do rumaki reo, it works, and you two just demonstrated that. So that's why I was so proud.
It's that thing that you just said before, Meriana, about not recognising your own milestones while you're in it. I haven't been in it with you guys, obviously, but I've been adjacent to it. I've been seeing, catching up with you guys every fortnight when we record an ep. And for me, it was just like suddenly it arrived as quickly as it did for me, as it did for you fellas. But I didn't have to walk the walk and do the business on the mic. I just got to witness all of that progress in what felt like, for me, such a small amount of time. So, yeah, seeing how far you guys had come and how high you were flying, man, I can only imagine that the feeling that I had is just, shared with so many other people who listen to the potty. And, I'd be curious to know, was that any of your three favourite ep? Did I just eat your lunch?
I was up there. It was up there in mine, but it's not the one I ultimately went with, no.
Oh, my one was was our last potty with Hori.
Oh, nera.
Yeah, and probably because it's the one that I remember most vividly. But I did scroll through the list, and we spoke to Chelsea about Lion King Reo Māori, and that was a huge thing that happened this year. And
it was.
Frozen Reo Māori. I looked through our list, Pānia Papa with Kotahiro Puka Puka. We had Anna Corrington and Te Kahurere Moa.
That was up there for me
talking
as
about
well.
Māori music. There are so many to choose from, and I'm like, wow, we actually did get into some kaupapa this year and have some mean combos. Talking to Dion from Coastie Kids about sustainable take, and talking to Raniera Proctor about a Māori perspective on surfing and our relationship with Tangaroa. But the reason why I chose Hori's episode is because it's really like progressive. He's using AR, that augmented reality, which there's still a big question mark over. It's quite a techie, nerdy space. There's all the talk about NFTs and the metaverse and all of this stuff that no one really gets, I feel. But here's the bro who comes along and shows us how you can use this tech in a way that challenges Pākehā, challenges mainstream media organisations to be reflective, self-reflective, and question their own ignorance or comprehension of or understanding of te ao Māori, and using sort of public pressure, which is ultimately how media organisations operate. So I think it's a genius idea.
They certainly respond to it, eh?
It's a good example for Māori and our generation and those coming up to look at technology and think, how can I use this with a kaupapa Māori behind it? That's what I like.
And Hohep is just such an infectiously smart, happy, inspirational kind of a guy as well. I felt happy for hours after that conversation. Just every time I thought about him, it's like, just want to move in the world like that. Yeah.
He's a cool fella. He's just been walking around Tāmaki Makaurau last weekend, putting up posters everywhere. Oh, yeah. So he's committed to the kaupapa. Yeah. So if people want to check back in on that one, check in on his IG at The Hori on IG.
So and there's some really cool, because he posted, it was a couple of days ago, some of the the taniwha in action, as it looks in the app. And I was like, oh, that looks really building. Cool. Yeah, and it's massive as well.
Yeah.
I hope they, like, the people, he's still finalising with media organisations, who's going to actually say, we want this in our office. But I hope people within the offices use it as well. Like, remind themselves that they've got this tool to keep themselves in check. Yeah, I'm sure they will, because it looks mean. Like, visually, it's just really striking, eh?
It does look mean, but I couldn't help but just picture him in his mocap suit, doing the little moves and like sitting with his legs off the side of the building.
You can't unsee that.
Dangling his little legs over the edge of the building.
What was yours, Meriana? What was some of your favourites, or what was your favourite?
I was actually thinking about how I really loved that Hakari episode. It's going way back now, with Karina and Casey. Because they're just such a dynamic duo, and it was really cool hearing about how, their mahi in the kouta on the marae kind of has set them up for being a chef, but also how that they're two very, even though, they're a ringawera in either space, how different it is on the marae and how, you know, they're world-class chefs, but also when they go to the marae, it's a whole other ball game. And they're like, we've got nothing on our aunties who can feed hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yeah.
They're so great.
As much as I'm not a chef, I love kitchen dynamics, and I love the politics of the kitchen. I love watching how all this food just comes together. So that was really cool. It was really cool hearing about, despite whether, you know, they've arrived in their career as world-class chefs, they're still challenged back home in the marae, and they still further down the pecking order, you know. There's the aunties still at the top.
They really inspired me this year because they have been talking about the fact that they're going to release a cookbook in Te Reo. And so for my final assessment for Rūmaki, we had to do a 1-hour presentation on a subject of our choice. I didn't really want to bore everyone by talking about the media for an hour, even though that's pretty much the only subject I know anything about. So I did like a cooking show, and I just tried to channel Casey and Karina in that. And then because I remembered that they were talking about like a Reo Māori cookbook, I made like a little mini cookbook to give out to my classmates when I did my my presentation. And so now I'm like,
cool,
I'm just like them.
Oh, what a cool idea. Man.
But I love the idea of like merging those passions, you know, of reo and cooking. And obviously we all love kai, and ringawera is probably like one of the most important jobs there is, but like putting all those things together, I love how they do that with style and like aroha. And I was like, yeah.
I've seen your Instagram page as well, Leonie. I bet that the whatever you made in that hour-long presentation was fire as well.
Oh, it was all pretty basic because if anyone's listening, no shade to the kura. Except there just wasn't really much like ventilation in our classroom, and then a little part of me was like, I'm not even sure they have insurance, so I didn't do any actual turn the cooker on cooking because I didn't want to risk it. But I did sort of combine some stuff, and I made some bread and then pulled out here's one I made earlier.
Love it.
Cool.
Oh, what a great idea.
Cool.
Blindfolded my classmates.
Did someone record it? You're going to share that with us, or?
I don't think so. Well, I think various classmates maybe got little bits. I don't know, I'm a bit ashamed.
No, don't
just
be
when
shy.
you're on the spot, like your reel comes out all mixed up and a bit, I don't know. Like I don't think I did a bad job, but I also don't think I did an amazing job.
You should build on that though, over summer. Like work on.
Maybe,
You could have a little like mini cooking show all in Te Reo. Just like make 2-minute noodles.
Someone who does it really well though is the Instagram page Whānau Kai. She makes incredible food, and she presents it all on her Instagram bilingually. So she was actually a really amazing like resource for like learning how to give tohu.
She does a lot of cakes and stuff, eh?
Yeah, she does amazing baking, and it's
Naomi Toilalo.
There
yes.
You go.
Yeah.
And like real like aesthetic, like the photography is really beautiful, and you know I can't do all of that.
Lots of cakes and
lots of cakes
snacks.
and breads and.
Oh, you two should do a show. You and Meriana, sounds like you're both passionate about kai. And
I'm passionate about watching people cook and eating it, and then doing the dishes as a mihi back to the ringawera. But I can't. I don't have the patience for cooking, eh? And if I do try and cook something real mean, it will take me hours.
Are you one of those use every single dish in the cupboard cooks?
Yeah, and just like all bench spaces, just like a bomb's gone off. But hey, I'll happily tautoko you, Kare, and I'll do your dishes. So, what was your favourite, Leonie?
So, my favourite episode, and to be honest, my favourite guest of the year, and I am sorry to choose an episode where you weren't here, Te Kuru.
I won't take it personally.
But it was our Awa Wahine episode, and Ngāhui Murphy, I said in the middle of the episode, which when I listened back last week, I'm so embarrassed with how it came out, but I was basically like, listening to you makes me feel like I'm high on drugs. And then Meriana, you more eloquently reframed it as the ihi te wehi te wana of the kōrero, and I was like, I'm high on drugs. But like...
And that ihiwehi wana kōrero was what Kura told us.
Exactly. But yes, because I have gone back to that kōrero of Ngāhuias a bunch of times in moments where I've got my ikura and I'm like mamai and annoyed, and just she's helping me relearn what it all means. And like just going back to her kōrero about things like, you know, it's the same blood that Papa Tuanuku had when she gave birth to our atua. And like, you know, when you're sort of craving starchy food and you've got a hottie on your tummy, you don't feel very atua-like. But there's something so comforting about that kōrero every time I hear it. So I go back to that episode quite a lot.
Yeah. I was going to say that was probably my fave too as well. But then I was also like, that was my idea and I hosted it. So I was like, well, don't want to be whakahihi. But Ngā Hui was probably the best guest day. Just in terms of how commanding she is.
Yeah.
I wonder as well though, because I'd heard her talk earlier in the year and I think I was struck by how like her kōrero at the start of the year as well. And obviously she's super connected. Like her hononga ki te ao wairua is so strong and, you know, she comes from a long line of wahine that if this knowledge is being passed down. But also I think we're just so hungry for it, eh? I think like for me, hearing her talk and then having her come back on the podcast, like I'm so hungry for knowledge about my whare tangata and how it works and what this process is and how to frame it and how to connect it back to our tipuna, you know?
Yeah.
We're not raised, well, a lot of us aren't raised with any, you know, you just taught how to deal with your ikura and that's it. And don't get hapu until you want a baby. Here's the ways you cannot get hapu, you know?
I liked your conversation about how it's like the responsibility of our tāne. Well, it's a responsibility of parents to also educate our tāne or our tamariki about what their role is in supporting wahine during that time as well. Like, it is something that affects everything. Everything that affects wahine affects te ao Māori katoa. And it was just like a beautiful, like she corrected me at one point because I was talking about like, you know, how do we educate our tamahine and our kohine, and she was like, oh no, our tamariki katoa, our tama and our kōtero, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think it's also worth shouting out Ataria Shaman and
Ataria was awesome.
Kiane Matata Sipu, who were also... Kiane was a co-host, was she filling in?
She was our temporary Te Kuru
That's right.
For that episode.
Oh, lucky she didn't take my spot.
You are.
We were close to voting you out, bro.
If I was temporary Te Kuru go, that's about as good as it gets, I think.
And it makes sense, because, you know, babies, you know, our tamariki, our piepi, tamariki, mokopuna, they're so important and they're the taonga in te ao Māori. And yet, up until you get hapu, we don't really have that same, well, we haven't been taught because of colonisation that process of your body preparing to be hapu and your body going through the stages to get, you know, through puberty and stuff, and those cycles are all part of that. That's also sacred as well. So it's nice to, you know, it's all part of it, eh? And it's nice to, I like what you said as well, Leonie, about they're talking about kura waka, you know, all this beautiful rich imagery, these beautiful atua wahine. That's like Ataria's kōrero really complemented it as well, eh? Because then she was bringing in all of the atua wahine. It's all connected. It's all part of the divine feminine, the sacred, that colonisation's done its utmost to stamp out, because, you know, the colonisers could see how mana as our wahine were, and they're like, whoa.
Like, we can't be having that.
No.
Those women have far too much agency. I have since had quite a cool conversation with a friend. He's from a Tūhoe family, and he was taught as a boy. All the boys in his whānau were taught by his father and his grandfather a haka, specifically about the phases of the moon and how they relate to women's ikura, to teach the boys what their responsibility during that time needs to be. Mm-hmm. And then from that point on, it was their job to go and, you know, get the products and also get the angi from the ngahere for all their sisters and aunties and stuff. And I was like, let's find someone with that knowledge as well, revitalise all of that knowledge transmission too, you know.
The haka, I just love the idea about
our tama learning beautiful haka and mōtiatia about the wahine. Like, this is your responsibility. It's about them, but it's also for you. I think that's cool.
It's funny we're having this kōrero because just last night, it was our last day at kura. For context, I was about to say I was at the pub. It was a celebration for the end of Rumaki Reo.
You don't have to explain why you're at the pub.
Yeah, I was at the pub. I was at the local, the Otaki local, and my sister, I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, so sis, but, you know, she was like, oh, my period's just arrived. And my friend's Tani was standing there and we had a bit of a, she's like, oh, how's yours? And we just had a bit of a conversation. And then I turned to him and I went, oh, sorry, bro. And he's like, no, it's all good. He's like, look, I am a bit uncomfortable, but that's good. Like, I should listen to these kōrero. We should normalise them. It was cute though. He was like, I am a bit uncomfortable, but I acknowledge that it's right for me to, like, you know, we should be exposed to these things.
And that's progress.
I used to flat with 2 of my cousins, and there were probably about 8 of us we had a big flat in Kirikiriroa back in the days. And when I would come home, it was just me and my cousin James and his sister, and the rest were all wahine as well. And so we were the 2 tāne in the household. And when one of us would come home and see all our friends on the couch with blankets, we knew we knew what time of month it was. Because they were all
synchronicity.
The synchronicity was there, and we were like, okay, it's time for us to go down to the garage and
chuck snacks and walk away.
Chuck snacks and make the whare nice and do what we could, and also get out of the way. Just get out, go to the garage. That's where we hung out. But yeah. But
pretty sure that's what was in the haka, eh?
Yeah, I reckon.
Get out
boys,
the way.
we got to go into the bush. We got to get these things.
Give them what they need, then leave.
No, but really important kōrero, and can agree that Ngā Hui Murphy, she's one of those manuhiri that we had on this podcast this year that is really transforming our tikanga and our perspectives, and that's really what I'm looking forward to exploring next year as well.
Yeah, great. I love that we all came at that question from in quite different ways. You know, that was a good summary, although not a complete summary of all of the amazing guests that we've had this year. I'm really proud of actually all the different kaupapa that we've managed to dive into. When you put it all together as a body of work, which was the point of this project, of the NE project, which was to just come at everything you possibly can come at from a Māori perspective. But between the 4 of us, we managed to seek out like a cream of the crop of Te Ao Māori. I like that it went from sort of like people that not many people have heard of to some people who were quite sort of rongonui already. Like, it's a lovely selection.
And I think as well, even when we did things that are, let's say, like stereotypically Māori, like hakari, like kapahaka, we came, our guests always had a fresh perspective on it, or they, had whakaaro that, because that's what we're trying to do, it's about how our world, our tikanga, our mātauranga, also how we're bringing that forward and how people are like adapting that or building on that, being creative, being innovative with it within this changing world. I really love that. Like Kura, she was awesome, and I just love what she's doing with her haka theatre company. Cool, let's push the boundaries. Well, I guess had fresh whakaaro. That's what I really enjoyed. Yeah. It
was fresh. And one of the other things I have asked you all to have a think about ahead of this episode was like growth moments of this year. And for me, growth moments can sometimes be like awesome stuff, fun stuff, intellectual stuff, purely emotional stuff. Meriana. I mean, I imagine you and I have had like heaps of these because we've been in a rumaki environment. And specifically, I asked you guys to think about growth moments to do with your taha Māori, with Te Ao Māori. It's a very personal question. But yeah, I'll start with you, Kare. Like, can you think of something that just, in terms of your tuakiri Māori, your Māori identity, you had a moment where something just really came into the light for you?
Like one thing. I suck at this.
One-ish thing.
I think because my brain is on the podcast at the moment, something that came to mind and thinking about our early episodes as well was how my pronunciation still really, really sucked. And we did an episode about kaimoana, and I kept messing up saying power, and then I got really embarrassed about it afterwards, and I was like, man, like, shame. I've just like broadcast this to everyone. And it was one of those moments where it's like you need to just, it's okay to make mistakes. And I think about, I can't remember what it was about, but I remember Stacey Morrison acknowledging in an interview that she kept saying a Māori word wrong on TV, and she got like called out for it when she was early on in her journey. Because it's the hard thing, it's like we are broadcasting our mistakes. It's not like you're just getting someone in front of you being like, oh, that's wrong, this is how you say it. And so that was like a kind of a kennel moment, but then, and I stewed on it for ages. But through that, I learnt, you get better at giving yourself compassion, and then I arrive at, I don't know, 8 months later, 6 months later, we did an episode entirely in Te Reo Māori. And so that's, if I put those two things together, it's like, okay, this was a real growth spurt. And it's just nice to reflect on those times where it's like, you're like, why am I doing this? I'm embarrassing myself. I'm making myself look like an absolute idiot. And seeing that that's all part of the journey and going there from there. Something that's less about me as well, which I was thinking about, is because all I want with my, obviously, the steel journey has like been everything this year. But a real highlight for me last night was my little sister, because she was around, she doesn't speak any reo, hasn't learnt any, but she was around so many reo speakers, I could hear her trying to speak. And she actually said something that made sense, and I was like, she was like, ko te tali, talking about the pub, she's like, ko te tali, te waka, te wānanga, te hāpori. And I was like, that's not like incorrect, like that kind of makes sense, mainly so the waka part. But it was beautiful. It was beautiful because this is what this is all about. It's about getting your whānau involved.
Impact on her.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah. Nah, it was real
and
cool.
A great illustration that the best teacher is your environment.
Yeah, just being around it is enough, eh?
Yeah.
So that's all I ever really want. And I think that's part of maybe that example that I was fixating on is very much, it illustrates that when you start this journey, you're thinking about you're all self-conscious. It's all about how good am I? Will I ever be matatau? And as you go along the journey, it stops being about you. It becomes about your whānau, about who you're impacting, how you're building up other people. So that's been the biggest growth for me.
That's huge. That's massive, Eho. That's awesome to hear, especially as you now stepping forward as a real leader within your own whānau and the impact that it's already having, not even, or just 1 year in Rumaki. So you imagine how you and your sister will be in 10 years' time or 5 years' time. So, that's really heartwarming to hear.
Yeah.
Because we all need pou reo in our whānau. We all need, and especially in whānau who have lost their reo, it has to, someone needs to step forward. There's always I'm not saying you have to do this, but it takes that person to be brave and courageous to make that step, that scary step, and walk down that path, and then the whānau will get behind them and support them and join them on that. But for those whānau who have, had that connection has been severed through colonisation, it all takes our communities to get behind them and bring them in. So that's mean to hear too much.
The kaupapa sells itself as well, though, because the night before she'd come to our kapahaka performance. And I knew, because I'm quietly trying to get her to come do Rumaki Reo with me. But it's scary for people. But then she came and watched us do kapahaka, and then she was hanging out with everyone. She's like, man, this is amazing. All the singing's amazing. The community's amazing. And so, it just illustrates to me, that if we can get our whānau to come and see the fruits of it, the beauty of it, then more people will get on board. So that's mean. Have you convinced anyone, Leonie, in your whānau to get on the waka?
To go to a Rumaki? No. No, the person I've discussed it most, though, with has been Te Aihe.
Yeah, every bloody fortnight you guys are coming in.
Roughly once a fortnight.
Oh, it's so life-changing.
And
so
then Te Aihe's manager, our wonderful head of podcast, Jane Yee, gives me a telling off for trying to tempt Te Aihe away from the company.
Yeah, it'll happen. Sorry, Jane, it'll happen. Soon, and what soon is defined as, I'm not too sure, but definitely, yeah.
You'll feel it, bro. You'll hear the karanga.
When the time is right.
100%.
Not everyone can just step away at any time.
Exactly.
It's got to be a lot of factors that you work towards and that work out for you. And there's no pressure too, bro.
I think it's been liberating, sort of living or studying vicariously through you two this year, and somewhat, I suppose, adjacent to my own growth moments related to my taha Māori, which is I think it's happened twice so far this year, and I forget the exact circumstances of them, but it was more the experience of somebody who also has whakapapa Māori coming into our space at work, or meeting somebody out in the world and them just like asking me, no hea koe, and then me not having the immediate ability to summon that information, that like crucial information from within me. So it's not necessarily like a super positive growth moment for me, but it has been a solidifying experience to have that happen, and for me to realize that until I put in the mahi, I'm not going to be able to have the command of the reo that I really desire. And that's a simple fact, and you know, it sort of is what it is. But it's made it really clear for me that the trajectory that you guys have been on, that you've demonstrated for me, 100%. That's where I'm headed in my near future.
Okay.
Cool.
I have to mihi though to the rōpū that you guys have got going here at the spin-off, that you're one of the kaiwhakahaere. Spin-off has created a rōpū for staff that whakapapa Māori. Everyone's meeting right now. We just happen to be doing a podcast over the top. You should be there, and I apologise for taking away from that. But I love, like, that's you do what you can with what you have, and that's the most beautiful, shining example of that. The rōpū gets together, they play tākaro, they play kaupapa, like, you guys have a tutor that comes in that does lessons here at the spin-off.
Shout out to Samantha Veach, our wonderful kaioko who comes in every fortnight. Yeah, I mean, that's a wonderful thing, and I think a really, to be honest, like a baseline thing that I think most workplaces should make space for.
Most workplaces should make space for that.
You know, but it for sure, it's something that the spin-off should be given the mad props for. But even that, you know, has been an experience for me to step into a leadership role within that group, while also being someone who is so far from matatau.
Yeah.
Someone who is not at all tangata mōhio ki te kōrero Māori. But
sounds like it.
Which he says in beautiful te reo.
Because I've practiced it 17 times.
Yeah. But we all have to accept that is part of being Māori, is you need to take up the responsibility that you're given no matter where you are.
Yes.
That is just how it works. And it kind of sucks sometimes, but it's also one of the beautiful things about te ao Māori.
Yeah.
We take responsibility for each other even when we don't feel like we should. Even when we don't feel like we're strong enough, but like your community tells you that you're strong enough.
We don't feel like we should. When we don't want to.
Yeah, when we don't want to, but we know we have to.
The kia kaha bub mentality, Got to give yourself the kia kaha bub talk sometimes.
Yeah, got to give it to yourself.
Yeah.
Did you feel like, so in that moment for you, you know, those couple moments, those kōrero, was it like I need to do this, and was there like a guilt thing, or was it like a pōti thing, or was it just like because what I was hearing is that it was just a moment of reckoning. It was just a bit like, you know what, I will never be at the level I want to be until I put in the mahi. And I think it's cool to be real with yourself about that stuff, because you can be great, you know, we've all experienced language loss to some extent, you know, even Te Kuru, there's spaces you can't go into, bro, and speak kia reo. That's restricting in itself. So it's but you can't stay in that pōtitanga, eh? So it's like,
no. And I'd say it was less of a pōti thing and more of a riri thing, more of a frustration, more of just like a fuck. Like it's, you know, like trying to walk out the front door to go live your day and your shoes have been tied together and you fall over yourself.
Good analogy.
Yeah.
So it's like it feels like you know where the natural path is, and you can't in spite of yourself.
Yeah.
But from here, looking back, and thanks to Leonie's prompts for this hui, I can recognise that as, you know, those were two instances where I realised, hey, I've got to make some moves in my life. I've got to commit to my own haerenga, so that 5 years down the track, 6 years down the track, I can be doing my own Mahuru Māori episode.
You heard it here today, folks.
Put it in the calendar. 5 years.
Mahuru 5 years we're coming back here, and we're gonna do it.
2027.
Nice.
Bye.
Awesome.
Te Kuru.
I just want to say, I think that's quite exemplary, bro, and like emotional maturity to be able to say, I'm at this stage. It bothers me, but I'm not going to let it hold me back from committing to progressing, because I think we all have that in different areas of our lives.
Right.
And with a lot of our whānau, it's real. And so I just want to mihi to you for being able to state it the way that you see it, and then accept, and then commit to, okay, it's gonna take me to get over this, because ultimately, whānau, it comes down to us as individuals. It's like with any personal growth, health journey, real journey, whatever it is, there's nothing outside of us that can change, can make the decision for us. So that the desire is there. And I also like that it's riri instead of pauri, because, riri for me, we can capitalise on.
Yeah, that's
on
energizing.
Maybe it's a tāne thing, but, you use that riri, you turn it into passion, and that's what drives.
I know, I've built a whole career on being angry. That's what drives me.
And as a sad person, I
It's my
often
brand.
try and turn my sadness into riri, because then I can do stuff. If I'm sad, I can't do
just
anything.
4 angry people in here. No.
Really filling
I
the
think if you can
stereotype
use,
right now. Angry Māori.
It was Magneto that said, true focus lies between rage and serenity. So
Well, there you go. Because my quote is always about the Hulk.
what is
When
this?
the Hulk learnt to control his powers and turn into the Hulk whenever he wanted to.
That's a secret,
Someone was like, "How did you figure out how to do that?" And he was like, "The secret is I'm just angry all the time."
Oh, yeah. He said, I learned how to do haka. That's what he said.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
Kia ora, I'm Alex Casey, Senior Writer at The Spinoff. We wouldn't exist without the ongoing support of our generous members. If you're able to, you can make a donation at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
Kia ora, I'm Duncan Grieve, founder of The Spinoff. You can help us keep all of The Spinoff's award-winning journalism free for everybody by becoming a member today at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
2020 for you, Te Kuru. What does growth look like for Te Kuru or Te Marama Jews?
I was talking to Te Aihe earlier before the podcast, and I was like, I haven't done anything this year. I haven't done any kaupapa Māori growth. Like last year, I got my translator's license, which was huge for me. I'd been trying to get that for years. I hadn't been able to commit to the whole program. The year before, or within the years prior to that, I had successfully completed Te Panekiretanga o Te Reo, which was a huge achievement for me personally. And so looking back at this year, I was like, I haven't done anything this year.
You've done so much this year.
I know.
Are you kidding me?
But it was just that I think I'm a critical person.
Yeah, you're a sort of real high achiever.
Most critical of myself.
So I can see now that you're sort of trying to frame it in terms of like things that have been achieved.
I don't think I had a big goal like that. So I didn't have anything to measure like. But when I was talking with the Aihe, I thought, actually, I spoke at the Ngāti Kahungunu Reo Symposium, which had 1,100 people in the audience.
Holy, I didn't know there was that many people there.
Neither did I.
Oh, really?
I mean, going into it, I was like, yep, because I've never been, and forgive me, please, Ngāti Kahungunu, I had never been to that Reo Symposium before. I didn't realise the scale of it. It has grown over the years, and this was the biggest audience it has had, and it was broadcasted live as well on live stream, and I was just taken aback. I was like, wow, I didn't prepare for this, but still managed to get up there and deliver my kaupapa, and instead of sticking to a PowerPoint, I turned it into a more theatrical, creative kōrero. Asked them to turn the lights off, and they turned the lights off. Everyone's thinking, what's this fella up to? And then, gave a little kōrero and got the lights back on at some point, and delivered a pāo, a Māori rap that I'd written for the kaupapa of Reo Regeneration. So for someone who's trying to get into music, that was like a huge moment for me.
Amazing.
over 1,000 people. As someone who's done public speaking, I've never spoken to a crowd that big, and it was daunting. And I was just fortunate to have been there the day before to witness all the other, fantastic speakers, including the two young Kōtiro and Te Tube, and they were singing and rapping.
They're
and
so good live.
Yeah, and I was like, wow. And they really inspired me, and that was probably the growth moment. I'm like, here's the next generation. We're always talking about the next generation, and I'm like, I want some of that action. Like, I wanna be young and cool and hip, and I want to do my Māori rap song, because these girls are just, they were just slinging it.
Yeah,
they were just going for it. And I'm like, okay, never mind the PowerPoint presentation, I'll save that for a classroom or something. Let's do something else. So that was a huge growth moment for me. Yeah.
Now, if you ever go and do like a application for some New Zealand On Air music funding, you can say that you performed for an audience over 1,000.
I should have mentioned it, yeah.
Because that's one of the criteria. You have to have performed for audiences over a certain size. I just put an application in too.
I didn't even think of that.
Bro.
Yeah.
Tricks of the trade. You heard it here first, Mano. Entered on air funding hacks.
Mine is not really anything where I came to any kind of conclusion from. It was just a new experience for me, I guess. Being in a sort of immersive tikanga reo Māori environment, I was really struck this year by the roles of wahine and tāne. And I say this with zero negativity attached, but I have spent most of my life being sort of like a genderless, ageless blob in my friend circles and my work. And then in the Rumaki environment, I was, to a lot of my classmates, I was Aihe Leonie and definitively a wahine. And I don't necessarily identify as takatapui, but because our roles and responsibilities were so well defined by if you were wahine or tāne, I found myself sort of wondering a lot of days, a lot of weeks, how it must be to navigate Te Ao Māori for our non-binary whānau. But then I realised that I was sort of projecting my own curiosity and thoughts onto, what must this be like for them? I actually meant what is this like for me? Because but mainly because I don't have children. So I'm 41, I don't have any children. Whānau is everything. If you're wahine, your whare tangata is everything. And if you've made it to 40 and you don't have traditional whānau and you don't have children, it really makes you go, where do I fit in here? It's fine if you're in your 20s, you're not expected to have figured it all out yet. But I just find it really interesting. I am a professional auntie. I love that about myself. I've got 100 iramatu. Every single rangatahi in my class became my iramatu. I'm auntie, and that's fine. But it was a really interesting sort of a face-to-face, no, you've really got to think about this concept of what it is to be wahine, because Te Ao Māori is your ao. You can't be a blob that identifies as nothing anymore. You've really got to think about what this means to you, what having no children actually means to you. I don't feel pouty about that, but it's okay, well, what does whakapapa look like for you if you are eventually going to only whāngai? As I said, there's no conclusions. It was just something I've never thought about before.
Massive growth.
Yeah. Massive growth moments. Thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not close, but I'm not miles away from being queer.
Kari, don't.
I'm closer to that. I'm closer to that than I am to being 18. I'll put it like that. So, and that is ahead of me. So, I find it fascinating and interesting to think about where I fit. Because, that's the thing about whakapapa Māori is you fit into a whakapapa. It's not about you, necessarily. You fit into a community. And I've got a Pākehā family, and I've got a whānau Māori, and no kids. And, if you don't sort of have a traditional family structure around you, it really gives you sort of pause to go, where do I fit in?
I think that's a really... hōhonu kōrero, and those are probably some of the biggest growth moments that any of us in this ropu have had this year, what you're talking about. but I just, as you're speaking, I think back to what Kura Te Ua said, that her mentor, one of her mentors, told her that there's a place for you. So I feel like that's probably the only contribution I can make to this conversation.
No, that's a nice whakaaro.
No matter where you are in Te Ao Māori, there's a place for you.
Yeah.
Shit,
Kia ora for that.
It's a real shame the funding's run out, eh? This is a whole nother...
We need a part 1, part 2 this.
Hey, shit.
I think as well, Leonie, like you've already kind of identified that you're a fire to so many. And we need our fire. We need lots of aunties because, you know, we're big communities.
They're the ones that let you get away with stuff.
You know, I think about like at the wānanga, and because there's quite a lot of like little babies, and it's been so beautiful to watch them grow. You know, because you're around them like 4 days a week, and so you watch them start to crawl, walk, gabble. Some of them are like almost talking now. It's beautiful, and
cool.
These
are from mamas in your
in
your kura.
Yeah, and because it's encouraged for them to bring their babies to the wā, so it's stunning. And there's a lot of us childless mid to late 20s, 30s that it's real obvious that we're clucky as because we're always holding a baby. But it's like, I know I'm not ready, and I cherish that role. And one of my good mates, because her baby Hina is just something else, my mate Ariana, you know, she did a mihi to everyone for helping her, because that's her first baby, helping her raise her baby. And that's the role that, you know, us childless ones, I think, can play, is we can take the pressure off the mama, we can give them a break, we can, you know, change the nappies, we can teach the bubs naughty things. Could be corrupting influences.
Buy the kids boxes, don't tell your mum.
Yeah.
I did a lot of that this year. No, I'll pay for that. Don't tell anyone.
But it is a hard wānanga, eh? Because I also wonder, I've had kōrero about who are, there's rangatahi and then there's pakeke, and where does that transition happen? And what does that look like? Because I've got this theory that it's like when you have a baby, then you become pakeke. That's just me, because I'm like, well, I'm definitely not a rangatahi anymore. But I also, kaumātua would
by
never
that
call
logic,
me a pakeke.
I get to stay rangatahi forever, which I'm fine with.
No. I mean, I'm not saying you don't, but I'm saying this is a conversation, and I think Te Ao Māori, we're at a place now of I don't know, re-indigenizing, decolonization, whatever you want to call it, decolonization, where we're having the gender kōrero.
Yeah.
And it's not up to us to figure it out today, and there are probably a lot more, there are many more people outside of this room who are more informed,
people out there.
And I'm sure that conversation will get more and more inclusive and advanced and wholesome as we progress into the future about gendered roles and stuff, coming from such a traditionally gendered society. And our understanding, I think it's more about our understanding of what it was like back then, because we might have a skewed perception on what that looks like when we come from a Pākehā framework or a Pākehā perspective. How does that fit into this, you know, this modern contemporary arrangement? But if we try and strive to look at it from a more traditional understanding, especially in my iwi and Ngāti Porou, where women held the land, like women had, they were the chiefs. All our wharenui are named after women. So there are different tribal examples.
Absolutely. And I was definitely sort of talking about gendered in terms of roles and responsibilities. I wasn't talking about any kind of misogyny experienced within that sort of gender binary, just the fact that a binary exists. In some cases, in some ways, was something I haven't really had to think about for a really long time, because I sort of, in the Western framework, I choose not to.
Yeah, and when so much onus is put on, you know, whakakaha te iwi, whānau mai ngā pipi.
Totally.
It's hard not to think about it. Yeah. Like, I know we're in different stages in our lives and stuff, but it's started to make me feel pressured about having a baby, even though I don't have a partner, in a way that I like haven't felt in like ever. And you know, for a long time I'm like, I'll do that in my 30s, maybe my mid-30s, my late 30s. Gets further and further away. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I should have a baby, because that's what Te Ao Māori wants me to do.
when you're holding this newborn child at your kura reo and you're like, wow, this is actually really fun. Like, I'm getting a lot of reciprocity here. I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Yeah, this is good. This is helping my journey. No, but in all seriousness as well, when you see how beautiful these environments are for our babies to grow up in, and you think about it's, you think about, well, if I was passing the reo on to a child, then you're doing the intergenerational learning. Whereas when it's just you, and your whānau, then I don't know. Sometimes I think, well, this would be easier, or like would feel more motivating in those times when it's hard. Feels more Māori, I guess. Yeah. But it's, man, I'm mean that you opened up this wānanga. Kare.
What I was going to say before I went on that other tangent was that I have a term for this middle section between rangatahi and pakeke, and it's actually the title of one of my new rap songs.
Oh, hey, there we go.
In 2023, and it's called Rangatoa. Rangatoa.
Oh, Rangatoa.
Yeah, so that's the so you're talking about pre-kids. Obviously, you can have kids and be part of Rangatoa, and this is the activist years, the years where you have all your strength and you are doing kaupapa, you are changing the landscape, you are, whatever it is, you are at home, digging the holes.
Did this kupu already exist, or is this a Te Kuru kupu?
I just made it up.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, rawe.
So this was the waiata that I wrote for the Kahungunu Symposium, and sanga there was about rangatoa, because we had speakers like Meriana Pittman, Hilda Harawira, and he just had the Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori 50th anniversary of the Te Reo Māori Society, which my parents were involved with. There was a lot of kōrero about ngāta matoa, and I thought about, wow, we've been labelled rangatahi, our gen, since, 2003 or whatever, when it became really like a strong term.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been another term for what happens when you've got kids. You're no longer rangatahi, you're an adult. Even if you have kids when you're young, you can't be called a rangatahi. So what's the term? Maybe you're rangatoa, because you're carrying all these responsibilities that a child doesn't carry.
You've got the fire.
You got the fire to,
The
to charge
responsibility
forward.
comes from within, not just being told by someone older than you that you need to do a thing.
Yeah.
Like, you've got the fire to do it.
The term is aimed at empowering, our mindsets, giving us motivation to strive to be part of rangatoa.
Kia ora.
Yeah.
Man, kia ora, bro. Aye.
I mean, I've aged out of the rangatoa generation, but I love that word.
Well, there's no, I don't know if there's an age.
Oh no, I got no energy for nothing.
Maybe 50 plus is. You're in this potty, so hey.
Yeah, true.
I've got no energy. Same, so
You got a little bit of the rangatahi fire, but you got none of the dustiness of a pakeke. So you're square in there, I reckon, pal.
Okay, go fight.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a cool kupu, bro, because, this has been the source of many kōrero with some of my mates at the wānanga. Especially when the rangatahi do this, when I try and do something like, trying to be like, I'm real hip, and they're like, you're not.
See, we are older than
We're
that
aged
now.
out.
And I guess that's
And
me
they're
trying to
cool.
find my place. Like, where am I?
They're too cool for us. Well, they're too cool for me. Like, they're so, we've talked about this before on the podcast, about how rangatahi these days, they're so toe in themselves. They know where they stand. They dress real mean.
Te hoha.
They're full of shit, says Te Kuru.
Yeah, times have changed, man. Where's the kids with substance? That's what I'm looking out for. If you want to be rangatoa, you come and talk to me, and we'll put you on the right track. All the rest of you can do your TikToks.
I find myself feeling really resentful about how good everyone looks when they do Polyfest now. Like, when I was doing Polyfest, we just looked so shit. Like, bad makeup. Now they all know how to do makeup, and their hair looks, they've got fleeky eyebrows and beautiful hair and perfect makeup. I was like, man, we had like wrong coloured Maybelline on because they didn't make makeup for brown girls yet in the early 90s, and like terrible eyeliner. And I was so resentful.
All the boys are like they're trialing for the NBA.
Oh my God, they all look...
They all flasher than the senior groups now.
Six packs and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, you're 15.
Yeah. I'll take it back. I'll say they are rangatoa. They're rangatoa. But, you know, rangatahi, maybe rangatahi bracket's getting lower because kids are growing up a lot faster.
Yeah, well, that's good and that's bad as well, isn't it?
What's the other term? Is that taiohi?
Taiohi is
Yeah.
under.
I like that one
yeah,
as well.
rangatahi.
I like that kupu. Because I think, like, rangatahi is just hammered. Everyone's talking about rangatahi this, rangatahi that. We want to appeal to a rangatahi audience. Yeah,
Oh,
but
oh, weird. Who's saying that?
I might write a post tonight and be like, okay, tamaiti is 6 to 8. Taiohi
boundaries,
is
bro.
9 to 12. Rangatahi,
Look,
13
as someone
to
who has
40.
addressed the Ngāti Kahungunu Reo Symposium, I have taken upon myself to set some boundaries.
honestly,
So
I'd
many
love that.
terms thrown around.
Someone said to me not long ago, in the context of this, one of the kaiako, well, sort of traditionally, you probably whakaaro on this, Te Kuru, you would say, oh, pakeke ake ki aia. Like, so you would use that term to sort of say how old you are in relation, or like, were you all the youngers, I guess, in relation to someone else. So it's not like he pakeke ho, it's like he pakeke ake au ki ia, ki aia. Is there a whakaaro that you've heard Te Kuru? Because I thought that makes a lot more sense to me as to why it feels so hard to pin down, I don't know, these periods of our growth. It's also probably just because it's been infected by whakaaro Pākehā, like what's the age bracket?
I think it's all relative, of course, because we say ngā mātua, we're referring to our parents' generation, and when they say ngā mātua, they're referring to our grandparents or even our great-grandparents' generation, so it's all relative. That's probably the trouble with the rangatahi terms, is that they're sort of age-locked, if you like, but there's no clarity around what the age is.
Yeah.
I always like to specify, when you're talking about generations, I always like to be clear on what generation people belong to. So if my nephews, they're my nephews, nieces and nephews, then I make sure they call me uncle, so that they remember, even though some of them are rangatoa now, they're no longer rangatahi, there still has to maintain for me that awareness of whakapapa.
Cool.
Yeah, it is important, eh? I've got cousins and nieces and nephews that are roughly the same age, and I get mixed up and call people cuz who are actually a niece, or call it, or vice versa. The distinction, there's no distinction in age, but the distinction in generation is actually quite important. So I get corrected. It's like, oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we used to get corrected. We had an auntie who was younger than the other aunties.
Yeah.
So we used to just call her by her first name. My dad would always say, auntie, so-and-so. So it's been drilled into us from a young age on my whānau. Respect the whakapapa. Because it's about respect. Oh, I owe that person a lot more respect than I do my cousins, who I might get away with, get away with more with.
All right, we are going to look now. That was a hell of an awesome wānanga. I wish we'd just been having episodes all year where we just yarn about whatever we want. Here we 2023, it's just around the corner. It is a shame our last episode didn't quite align with like the end of the year, so you can do like the definitive end of the year episode. However,
the end of whose year?
Well, true. I mean, yes, we're looking at Te Tau Māori. We are only halfway through the year. But yeah, 2023, I do like a blank slate to look at. I don't know about you, Meriana, but I don't really have anything planned for next year yet.
Oh, no.
I finished my studies and then went, what do I do now? And haven't really got an answer. At my kura, there's a 3-year teaching degree that follows afterwards, which I have no desire to become a kaiako. I don't have the requisite energy to give. But
there's no rumaki level 2, so
no. Well, not at
Wānanga o Raukawa. We've got space.
Is there really a second year? How many
years? And a third
years?
year. You can do a bachelor's of Te Reo Māori. You do 3 years. Which I've decided I'm going to do.
Nice.
Nice.
Because I haven't studied enough in my 20s. I did stew on that for a bit. I was like, God, I'm going to spend most of my 20s studying. But unlike, I can't cope with not having a plan. Well, we talked about this the other day, how there's so much build up to making the decision to go to Rumaki, and then there's so much changes within the year. You're not really prepared for who you're going to become when you come out, and then you don't really think about how it's going to change you, so you don't want to go back to your old life anymore. You don't, the things that used to matter don't or I don't know, for me, it's like I don't really want to go back and work in a really high pressure newsroom environment where I feel strung out. And also just, 1 year gave me the taste for it, and now I'm like, oh, there's so much depth to our language, so I just want to go deeper and deeper, eh? Ruku, ohona.
Pai.
Nice.
So,
Jealous.
Yeah, but that was a good 2 months of sweating it and being like, oh man, my career, like, am I just, going to turn my back on that? Yeah, I mean, maybe. It's only 2 years. Maybe kind of, eh?
Yeah.
There's always time for a career.
Meriana, what's the name of that paparakota in Otaki?
The tally.
Have you let the tally know? They're going to brace themselves.
I'm tanga te whenua at the tally now.
You might be able to get a job there to,
Part-time.
Aye.
to practice your reo with all the patrons.
Thank you.
How many reo symposiums will you be addressing in 2023, Te Kuru?
Hopefully they invite me back. They're like, we didn't expect a rap performance.
Yeah.
Why'd this guy turn the lights off?
No, I don't really have much lined up for next year. I usually do.
You're a busy guy. That's surprising.
I generally work in sections of 2 years. Like I have 2 to 5 year plans.
Yeah.
But this has been such a busy year, and COVID felt like that took a couple of years away from whatever plan I had. So I think I'm still revising it. And since the COVID restrictions have lapsed, it's just been 100. Everything's been going 100 miles an hour. I think in a lot of different industries, certainly in media, production, and things like that. It's just been going full throttle, and I think everyone's feeling it now. Christmas couldn't come sooner. I'll be putting music out. That's my main thing. I'm looking to get into music. I was fortunate to jam at the Waiata Māori Song Hubs this year, and write a couple songs and record a couple songs. So working with Jordan with the Y, who was our first manuhiri on this podcast.
Remember?
Yeah, I remember. And we're working on a song at the moment, actually, and a few others as well. So really just looking to get into music, although it's very hard to be a full-time musician in Aotearoa. Probably anywhere, but certainly here, we're such a small market. And as a Māori rapper, that's a niche within a niche.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sell out Eden Park anytime soon. But really just want to invest as much time into that as I can and figure out how to fund it, basically, how to be sustainable so I can make music, because that's what I really enjoy. Yeah.
Are we, bro?
Beautiful. I feel like you're going to be really successful at it as well. What we've heard so far is mean.
Also, there's such, I mean, it's a shame that there's not a lot of money in it, eh? But there's a real hunger for reo Māori music across genres. So it's mean to hear, it's like, let's Māori rap, hard out. I mean, it's like pā way. It is pā. It's funny that...
true.
We don't think about it as pā. I remember it was Tia from Kānunu. She came to a kururu and did a rap and was like, this is a pā. And it was the first time I went, oh, rap is pā. Yeah.
Tia Huia Ropatini.
Kia ora, bro.
She was one of the MCs at the Ngāti Kahungunu Symposium, and she was doing her pā on the day one, and that inspired me as well. I was like, I got some pā. We went to uni together, so I know her well.
I got some of that.
She's one of my Te Waiora peers, so we go back.
Oh, we.
Te Aihe, also known as one quarter of the Modern Māori Quartet every now and again.
Hello.
What are your musical plans for 2023?
Hopefully go and put a suit on and do some more shows with the quartet, because they're awesome, and probably a good time to shout out Maka Pohatu, my brother who helped me with the theme song for Ne about a year ago in a heavily locked down studio in Morningside.
The day that Te Aihe and Maka were recording the theme song, or jamming ideas for the theme song, I was getting little snippets from the two of them from the studio. Obviously everyone was a little bit mad from being in lockdown for such a long time, and it was a truly joyful collaboration to witness.
Yeah, it was awesome. Maka's the man, and so too the rest of the whānau at the Modern Māori Quartets. Truly do not know next year.
Yeah.
Outside of that, probably just still smashing out fantastic podcasts such as this one for the Spin-Off Podcast Network.
Except not this one.
Other fantastic podcasts.
We don't know that yet, Leonie.
That's true.
One thing I am really excited about is Te Ropu Māori here at work. We've got a lot of cool whakaaro for ways that we can make the Spin-Off a cooler place to work at for kaimahi Māori. And there's a lot of mahi still left to go before we make that a reality, but it's very exciting. And again, shout out to the Spin-Off for giving us space and empowering us to dream and do that stuff. Yeah.
I think I might get into advertising, TV advertising, and collab with Te Aihe here, and he can voice the advertisements.
Oh, yeah.
That idea just come to me now, so...
And this is how you're going to fund it.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Did you just jot it down in your phone?
Right now.
I mean, I feel like a kaupapa Māori advertising agency would be quite a good idea because the regular old advertising world's pretty bad.
We'll have to take this out now. We have to take.
Don't steal our idea.
No, kia kaha.
Kei te pai, I had already stated that I don't really have any plans for next year, and it's my favourite thing to say. I don't have any plans for next year. That has never happened to me. I've been working full-time since I was just before I turned 16 years old. This is the first time in my life at the age of 41, that I don't have a plan, and it feels fucking great. That said, I do need a job. But I feel committed to waiting for the right job, a job that is kaupapa Māori, a job that uplifts and contributes to Te Ao Māori, where I can speak my deal at work. Until I find that role, I'm just going to hold out and freelance, I suppose.
That's what they say, The universe hates a vacuum.
Oh, I love that.
Make space for it, and then,
just suck it in. I also understand the privilege that I have just uttered out loud of being like, I'll just wait until the perfect job comes along. I acknowledge that privilege. I am able to freelance in the writing world until that job comes along, and not everyone gets the opportunity to just twiddle their fingers until the perfect job comes along, so I acknowledge that.
It's hard out there,
And when I say I'm going to do music, I just want everyone to know behind the scenes I work my ass off doing lots of other jobs like te karere, news stories and production.
We have already established that music doesn't pay, so everyone knew that you were going to be doing other jobs.
I'm actually thinking of starting a lawn mowing business, because where I live in Tūranganui-a-Kiwa, there's a shortage of lawnmowers, and coming into summer, because I've been away for a couple of weeks and I try to get a lawnmower back home, they're all like, nah bro, busy, can't take any more on. And I'm like, man, I should be going around and mowing people's lawns.
That's a good idea. You get exercise, you've got time to listen to music and practice your raps where you're just walking backwards and forwards with the mower.
That's what I do. I like mowing lawns. It's so satisfying. And I wouldn't even mind helping other Māori get into the business, because funeral homes and lawns, that's the one thing that'll never go out of business. Oh my God,
like death and taxes.
That's right.
It's brilliant.
In lawns.
All right, kei te pai. So in 2023, we're making music, we're making advertising, we're mowing lawns. That's us whānau.
And we may or we may not do a podcast.
And we may or may not create another podcast. But for now, ko pau te wā, kia tātou e hoa mā. Koira, tā mātou hōtaka mō tēnei wiki, mō tēnei tau hoki. Our final thanks go to the Spin-Off's General Manager, Mark Kelleher, and Head of Podcasts, Janie, for your love and your respect and your support and your expertise. Office Manager, Rachel LaRue, for all the help getting the logistics in line. Meriana Johnson, tēnā koe. Te Kuru a te marama Jews, tēnā koe.
True.
Te Aihe Butler, tēnā koe. Kia koutou e whakarongo ana, kia haumaru, kia tūkaha I o koutou nei, tuakiri Māori. Stand tall in the world, and the knowledge that your whakapapa Māori makes you unique, it makes you great, you are a descendant of greatness. Hei konei rā.
NAIR is public interest journalism funded through New Zealand On Air and brought to you by the Spin-Off Podcast Network. It was hosted and researched by Leonie Hayden.
with Te Kuru Jews and Meriana Johnson. Nair was produced by Te Aihe Butler, with senior production from Jane Yee and project management from Mark Kelleher.
Kia ora, this is Toby Manhire, here to urge you to tune in to Gone by Lunchtime, a podcast with me, Annabelle Lee Mather and Ben Thomas, tackling the world of New Zealand politics, from policy to polling, from scandal to psychodrama. Listen to Gone by Lunchtime, brought to you by the Spin-Off Podcast Network, wherever good pods are sold.
Kia ora e te iwi, Te Aihe Butler here, podcast manager at The Spin-Off. If you enjoy listening to our podcasts, consider supporting our mahi by signing up to become a Spin-Off member at thespinoff.co.nz/donate. The Spin-Off Podcast Network.